Good afternoon, Marietta. I am reporting live from KSJ News, and we are reporting a story about a woman who lives in the U.S. and her husband lives in Auschwitz, Germany. The woman is a survivor of the Holocaust who came to America to get an American citizenship and has been living peacefully in the U.S. until she received a call from her family members in Auschwitz informing her about the death of her husband, who was fighting in the war. Now, 50 years later, Arlene Aronowitz, at age 76, tells her story about her experiences during the Holocaust. The devastating imagery that she provides us is such a hellish environment and is unimaginably inhumane, and her story is enough to move many to tears.
Now let's take it to reporter Kim, who will be interviewing our guest of the day.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us on today's segment. I will be here interviewing Arlene Aronowitz to gain insight and hear her story. Hi Arlene, welcome to our KASJ news station here in Marietta. We are truly honored to have you today. Could you tell us about your experiences as a Holocaust survivor?
Thank you, my dear Kim. Thank you for having me today. Well, by the Nazis, even after so many years, I still remember every single detail quite vividly. And at first we were taken aboard a train to Auschwitz camp, where we soon discovered that the corpses were being burned and we could smell the bodies when our train passed the site. We were forced to work and we were often harassed by the Nazi soldiers. During the breaks that we had between our long hours and our back-breaking work that we had to do, we occasionally got to see our family and friends. And as time passed, we saw less and less of them. We learned that the Nazis were killing off the deemed as those who were deemed as weak and incapable of working any longer. And despite all that had happened, the few of us survivors were rescued by the U.S. soldiers. However, when we finally received some food, the people had died because we weren't used to eating so much food after being starved for so long.
So how did you feel after you were finally released from the camp and saved from this hell?
Well, I did feel relieved, but it seemed more like a dream to me. I thought that it was too good to be true because I couldn't remember living a life without constant fear or despair. Even so, I had hoped and faith that God would surely bring all of it to an end.
That was a very powerful story of such a strong individual who had survived the Holocaust. Thank you for sharing your experiences with us today. And after the commercial break, reporters Alex and Chandra will be talking about the statistical data of the great contributions that the Jewish Americans had on the U.S. during World War II.
50 years ago, when I was 22, I went through the most difficult and horrid events during the time that I was in Germany. We were extremely mistreated and my people were greatly dehumanized.
You know, macaroni can be used every day like potatoes.
Thank you, Kim, for that inspiring interview with Arlene Aronowitz. Now, Chandra and I will be talking about the Jewish Americans who had a great impact on the U.S.
Although the Jews suffered throughout World War II, many had greatly contributed toward the war efforts and victories. On April 7, 1933, newly appointed Chancellor Adolf Hitler passed a law which forced non-Aryan civil servants out of their jobs. By 1944, more than 133,000 German Jewish immigrants had moved to America. Many were highly skilled and educated, and some were even Nobel Prize winners and renowned intellectuals. The arrival of German and Jewish immigrants revolutionized U.S. science and innovation. Over 6,000 Jewish scientists joined the USA's Manhattan Project, which led to the creation of the first atomic bomb. Albert Einstein's theory of relativity led the path towards nuclear fission. In 1939, he urged President Roosevelt to build an atomic bomb before Nazi Germany. Niels Bohr was the first to apply the quantum theory to explain a nuclear structure. Lise Meitner was born in Vienna and became a pioneer of research into nuclear fission. Enrico Fermi was born in Rome. With Walter Zinfermi, he directed the first controlled nuclear chain reaction in 1942 at the University of Chicago. In 1942, the theoretical physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer was chosen to direct the Manhattan Project in Los Alamos. The world's first atomic bomb exploded on July 16, 1945.
During World War II, approximately 550,000 Jewish men and women served in the armed forces of the U.S., which was about 4.23%. 22 Jews obtained the senior ranks, and 3 Jewish soldiers were awarded the military's highest distinction, the Congressional Medals of Honor: Ben Solomon, Isadora, and Raymond Zussman. About 49,315 awards were given to around 26,000 Jewish men and women. The total of Jewish war casualties was 38,338, which in 11,000 were killed. Liberated Jews suffered from illnesses and exhaustion and emerged from concentration camps and hiding places to discover a world which had no place for them. Without family or home, they were reluctant to return to their pre-war homelands. The Jewish displaced persons were joined in a matter of months by more than 150,000 other Jews fleeing fierce anti-Semitism in Poland, Hungary, Romania, and the Soviet Union. Most sought to begin a new life outside of Europe. Palestine was the most favored destination of the Jewish Holocaust survivors, and next up was the United States. President Harry S. Truman issued an executive order of the Truman Directive on December 22, 1945. The directive required that the existing immigration quotas be designated for displaced persons. About 22,950 displaced persons, of whom 2/3 were Jewish, entered the United States between December 22, 1944 and 1947, under provisions of the Truman Directive.